After a pretty crazy week in college football, here is the new AP poll. And a lot of moves. I don't know how I feel about all of them, but I definitely have some opinions about some of them. When you look at that top five, Oregon definitely deserves to be number one. Ohio State definitely deserves to be at number two after knocking off Indiana. Texas stays at three. That's good. I think Penn State being at four is so overrated, and I don't know how the committee on Tuesday or going the college football playoff committee are really going to get around putting Penn State so high because they're not a great team. Granted, I know they only have one loss, but they're not a good football team in my opinion. You look at a team, Notre Dame. They get a big win. I think they should be four personally. Georgia sits at number six. I like Georgia there. I like Tennessee there at seven. Again, Miami, they got a win yesterday. I know they got a win, but they didn't look great. They did not look like a really good football team. They didn't look complete. I mean, for 3 quarters, Miami looked like a poverty football team against Wake Forest. And that's not good enough. If they really want to dominate, their defense needs to play better. Their offense needs to be a little bit better. I know they got to the fourth quarter and then they turned it on, but that doesn't look great for the committee in my opinion. SMU at 9, I like that they are leading the ACC right now, and so yeah, being at 9, that's a good spot for them to be in. When I look at Indiana at 10, I think Indiana are better than Penn State. Them sitting at that 10 spot is just I think that's a lot. I mean, you look at what's the difference between Penn State at 4 only losing one game to Ohio State, and then Indiana losing to Ohio State also, but being at 10. I think that's a stretch for that game, and I think Indiana they're gonna show some people what's gonna happen. Boise State sit at 11. They almost got upset by Wyoming this weekend. They didn't look great, but it is what it is there as well. Clemson sits at 12. I think they shouldn't be that high. Listen, when I look at it, granted they are number two inside the ACC, but when they lose to South Carolina next weekend, it's just gonna be a complete drop. I think they drop out of the college football playoffs. And here's why my big issues start. You have Alabama and Ole Miss, who both lost this weekend to unranked football teams, sitting in front of South Carolina at 16. I get it. South Carolina has 3 losses. They all have 3 losses as well. But I don't understand how they sit in front of South Carolina. That is a terrible, terrible, terrible poll. If anything, South Carolina should be at 14, and Arizona State should be at 13. Arizona State looks very dominant inside of the Big 12, and I think they'll probably end up winning the Big 12. But that's ridiculous from the AP poll, putting South Carolina at 16 and Bama and Ole Miss at 13 and 15. 13 and 15. Like, you look at Alabama and Ole Miss, their quarterbacks played so bad yesterday that I wouldn't want them anywhere near the playoffs. But still having them that high to me just doesn't make a lot of sense. Iowa State, they look good. They got their win yesterday. Tulane got their win. BYU though, they again, why they're still ranked so high, it doesn't make sense to me. They have now lost 2 weekends in a row. And I think they could potentially even lose again next weekend inside or in a couple weekends for the conference championship game. But you have to figure that out. They have to figure that out for themselves. You look at Texas A&M. Got the loss last night. They went into halftime down 21-7 against Auburn, and there was there was a comeback, there was a fight, but in overtime, Auburn ended up winning the game. A&M didn't look good, and I've been saying it for weeks that they aren't a really good football team, and that happened. UNLV, they went and got job done inside the rain. It was what it was. Colorado though, they dropped to 23 after a rough loss to Kansas. They didn't look good at all yesterday, and now they sit at the 23 position. So it is what it is when you look at Colorado. When you look at some of these other teams, but I think Arizona State should be ranked higher than Alabama and Ole Miss. But looking at it, Boise State barely held off of Wyoming yesterday, so that won't you think about it. Think about a Boise State against a team like Oregon, or no, they already played Oregon and they lost by 3. But think about them against a team like Ohio State, against a team like Texas. They rolled yesterday. They played great. They dominated, and so I think teams are gonna have to look at that and figure it out. I think Tennessee gets into the college football playoffs now. Penn State barely held off Minnesota, and they're still ranked at number 4. To me, that just doesn't make logical sense. But it is what it is. Florida upset at Ole Miss. They got a big one against Ole Miss. Jackson Dart threw 3 interceptions in the last minute. Just did not look good for him. Not a good display. And I've been saying for weeks that inconsistencies at that quarterback position is going to get them in trouble, and it did. But speaking of quarterback, Will Howard had the game of his life. Against Indiana. So big ups to them for getting that win. I think MSU are definitely going to win the ACC. And I think Miami actually slips in the playoffs as well. Clemson will fall though, and so it is what it is. A lot has happened this weekend. Notre Dame to me are still my dark horse pick, and then my logical pick would be Georgia. So let me know what y'all think about those picks. Let me know how y'all think about this weekend. Yeah.